All right, good evening or good morning. uh, Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the sixth of eight parts spring workshop series. Today's webinar is titled Navigating Business Resources with the Help of Your Local Business Incubators. My name is Addison Vang. I am a community development educator for the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension, and I serve Dunn, Chippewa, and Eau Claire counties in western Wisconsin. Today we have Adam Accola from CoLab in Eau Claire. And this is a no-cost series of online sessions for food entrepreneurs and farm-based food businesses, and is brought to you by the Food Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Development, or FEED, initiative of the Extension Community Food Systems Program, which is a statewide extension program that fosters resilient and sustainable community food system development through research, evaluation, project-based partnerships, and programming like this. And with that, I'll just like to introduce Adam, who is the community manager at CoLab, a shared space and a hub for entrepreneurs, startups, and businesses that supporting the Chippewa Valley. And with that, I'll just let him get started and tell us a little bit about CoLab and what you guys do.
Awesome. Thanks, Addison. And thank you, everybody, for attending today. My name is Adam Accola. I'm the community manager here at CoLab in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. We are a community workspace based in downtown Eau Claire. And I'll tell you a little bit about our space and what we have to offer here, as well as kind of our place in the entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the Chippewa Valley. So we have a small team here at CoLab. It's myself and our membership and marketing coordinator, Lawrence. We basically run all of the operations for CoLab, as well as kind of create these networks and opportunities for entrepreneurship here in the Chippewa Valley. So CoLab is a co-working space. Some people are familiar with kind of the national brands WeWork or Regus. Those are large-scale co-working spaces. We're what's kind of considered in the industry an indie co-working space, where we're owned and operated locally here in Eau Claire. So we aren't a part of a large national brand. We are central to Eau Claire and put here by Pablo Group, which is a redevelopment group here in downtown Eau Claire, to identify and hopefully fill some of the gaps that we notice in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We also, in addition to being a physical workspace, we work as an entrepreneurial resource for startups, entrepreneurs, people that are just thinking about getting into business or have kind of an idea for a startup. We try to help them at all phases with either connections to industry experts, connections to free or low-cost resources here in the Chippewa Valley, and then potentially beyond that, resources for growth and scaling of their business. We are a community of co-workers, so that means that we all work together, but we don't necessarily work for the same company. It kind of creates a shared sense of motivation and a shared sense of, I got to be working because other people around me are also working, and increases people's motivation and productivity while they're here in the office. And so we have a combination of startups and a combination of nonprofits that we'll chat about on the next page. So membership at CoLab works kind of like a gym. So you can purchase a monthly membership here at CoLab, and you get full access to our space. Our Flex membership is an unlimited access to our space. Dedicated is where you have your own desk at our space that is yours to return to every single day, leave things at, lock things in. We also have a couple private offices. And then for those flexible or remote employees, we have virtual memberships where you can use our address as your business address and get a couple of in-person amenities with that as well. You can also drop in for the day at CoLab. So instead of purchasing that monthly membership, if you do need a little bit more flexibility, you can just stop in and pay by the day to use the space. And that includes access to all of our common areas, the phone booths like the one that I'm in right now, free coffee, and all sorts of stuff to kind of keep you productive throughout the day. A little bit of a better option, more professional option than a coffee shop, say. Our community is currently made up of primarily startups and students. So we have a partnership with the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, where students get free access to our space, and that is primarily to encourage students to stay in the Chippewa Valley post-graduation. So for students that are either working on their own idea or students that are working for a local startup or on an internship for a local company, with the intention that they realize that Eau Claire is a perfect place to stay post-graduation. In Eau Claire, we see a lot of what we call brain drain, where a lot of our students come here for 4 to 5 years, and then they leave for a bigger metro area, primarily Minneapolis, where we're at. And so our goal here is to keep them in our community, keep them producing results for our both creative and entrepreneurial economies, and retain that talent and that education that we foster here in the Chippewa Valley. We also have our companies and businesses. This one, I'm sorry, is not labeled. 98 companies are for-profit and about 15 are nonprofits here at CoLab. And then this is the slide where we can kind of chat about any of these, but just a couple of the projects and activities that we're involved in or connections that we have here in the Chippewa Valley and throughout Wisconsin are listed here. So I'll just do a quick rundown of these. The Entrepreneur and Training Partnership is a program through UW Extension, which works with formerly incarcerated individuals and also has in-prison trainings for incarcerated individuals to help them build businesses that become cash flow positive 90 days within operation and don't require a physical storefront. F-Up Nights Eau Claire is a new initiative that we just started and actually ran the first one last month. And it is a night designed around destigmatizing and normalizing professional failure. We all fail, and so why not talk about it? We also offer workshops and trainings, primarily through our members, as well as partnering organizations. And a big one that we offer is Startup Chippewa Valley, which is a week in November, which includes all sorts of programming designed to connect, educate, and support entrepreneurs and startups. We also have connections to grants and funding programs like the Red Letter Grant and the Idea Challenge, which is based in downtown Eau Claire. We are the home of the first WISIS Venture Home program, which is now a statewide network of local incubators that are looking for scalable businesses to help grow and scale their businesses through access to the local network of entrepreneurial resources, as well as a statewide network of resources through WISIS. Like I mentioned before, we have a partnership with the university that allows UWEC students to use our space for free. We have connections with statewide organizations like the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, Wisconsin Tech Council, UW Extension, the LGBT Chamber, and the Veterans Chamber. We're continuing to build local partners with other large organizations like our local technical college and the Mayo Clinic. We are a co-organizer of 1 Million Cups, which I know was mentioned in the last webinar with Feed here. So if we wanted to chat a little bit more about that, I can give you some insight on that. We're also a partner and sponsor with the Red Letter Grant, which impacts 10 counties in Western Wisconsin here with grants of $2,000 and helps women-owned businesses really build those business plans as well as network into a really robust network of entrepreneurs and resources that exist here in Western Wisconsin. We're a sponsor and work as a coach in the weekend-long business builder competition Startup 48. And then we're also a partner with Muskie Tank, which is a 3 times a year meetup here in the Chippewa Valley. One usually happens in Eau Claire, one in Menominee, and one in Chippewa Falls, where they program a speaker, typically talking about business growth and development. And so we're also a partner with them in that. So just a quick overview kind of the things that CoLab does, and I'd be happy to share any more if there are any questions about specific things that CoLab offers, specific questions about any of the programs or activities that we're involved in, and just field any questions that you might have. I see one in the chat here from Todd. How long have you been offering free UWEC membership, and how has demand been? I'd fear or hope the demand would overwhelm your space. So demand has been really good. We have about, sorry about that. Let me go back to my slide here. So we've got 43 students currently using this space. We haven't put any limitations on it right now, but there is in the future a conversation about how do we maybe limit this a little bit more, maybe have a formal application, ensuring that students are using it not just for schoolwork, but potentially for entrepreneurial work as well. And we haven't had to do that at this point. The university is very supportive just of having a space for students off campus to engage with startup businesses. And so it hasn't overwhelmed our space up to this point, which we're lucky for. But that is the conversation down the road if students were to find that this is a far better place to work than the library, which most students agree that it is.
Yeah, do feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions as well if you would like.
Yeah, I had one, Adam. I'm in Sun Prairie, and I just spoke with Jessica late last week about potentially starting our own incubator. What's I guess the traditional mindset would be that office space is having kind of high vacancy rates, et cetera, because of remote workers. How do you guys find that your space is valuable to people that need office space versus working from home?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. So we've seen a lot of success lately with particularly people that are either moving to Eau Claire or are traveling to Eau Claire using our space. It's been a little bit harder to educate our local population, people that maybe have remote jobs that have worked remote for a decade or more, and having them find us because they've kind of worked into a workflow. They're used to the work from home life. But some people, we recently had a couple move up from Chicago and they both have remote jobs. And so they both got memberships, easily able to find us because they're familiar with co-working, having had it in a larger market like Chicago. So we're seeing a lot more luck with our travelers and our new residents than we are with current residents joining us. But those that have the remote workers find that it's just a better place to actually get work done. They're not being distracted by the kids or the dog or the piles of laundry or dirty dishes or things that kind of can distract you at home while still having a kind of work from home vibe. We have both desk space as well as soft couch seating, high top tables, various places so that you can really kind of choose your own adventure and pick where works best for you. And competing with things like the home office, we're sure to offer some of those amenities that you can have at home, the comfortable seating. We also have a wellness room for new mothers who are either pumping or nursing, and anybody that has a daily meditation or prayer and just needs to step out of the office. So offering some of those amenities has really helped us position ourselves really well for attracting those remote workers to our space.
Great. I may reach out to you for a potential walkthrough at some point if you'd be open to that.
Yeah, I'd be down. On our website, if you want to schedule a tour with us, we do offer virtual tours where I can just take you around on my phone and I can show you our space and layout. And then we can also have a conversation just about how CoLab works in general. Always happy to share.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump into, oh, nope, you go ahead. Sorry,
Jessica. I just love this whole idea. I think it just could do nothing but foster creativity and synergies and cross programming with other partners in the lab. So it's really exciting to hear about this. It's a weird question, but do you have any idea like what it might cost to set something up like this? We don't have a lot of broadband capabilities. I'm in northern Wisconsin, so we're always struggling with broadband accessibility, and this seems like a fun and creative way to connect people to that service at the minimum.
Yeah. So co-working kind of started back in 2008 when companies during the recession sent their employees remote for the first time. And instead of forcing employees in large city centers to travel and commute back into places like Manhattan, they set up co-working spaces in some of the suburbs surrounding New York City. And those places became kind of the hubs for business activity. In rural areas, people have seen success specifically because of broadband access issues in setting up co-working spaces where broadband is kind of something that's offered to the coworkers, even if it's not necessarily as accessible on kind of an individual basis throughout rural areas. I'm not sure if there are still grant dollars for setting up things like this, but the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation does have some programs designed for rural entrepreneurship specifically that may alleviate some of the costs in setting something like this up in a more rural area. I think specifically broadband access is something that I know I'm passionate about for northern Wisconsin, and is something that's a necessity for doing business the way that business happens now, which is primarily online. And so I think that if you were to set something like this up in a northern community, I would imagine that there are probably some grant dollars in use. Or grant dollars to use. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like, but I'd be happy to look into it as well if you would be interested in furthering that conversation.
Sure, I'm thinking I could pass this on to my Economic Development Corporation. And also, maybe there's some grants there for underserved communities as well. But do you think you have any kind of estimate for like what's a monthly operating cost? Is it mainly for internet access and rental once you get the building set up?
For us, our personal largest cost is staffing.
Staff?
So staffing is our largest cost, and we do try to keep things pretty lean with only 2 of us, but that still does run us a pretty large operational budget for the year. And then next on that list would be rent. And then next on that list would be like member amenities and platforms. But
Great.
basically, if somebody has an open office space, you don't necessarily need to offer all of the amenities of a co-working space. The kind of basics are internet and coffee, but the more that you can add on top of that, the more it'll attract people to bring them into the office rather than just make it a choice that they have.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, did you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had, so Alyssa actually asked some of the questions I was going to ask, but I was wondering, even thinking about like first getting CoLab started, how important was that local partnership with the redevelopment group? And is that something that like, do they help you with the funding and the revenue generation, or do you do any fundraising in order to keep CoLab going, or do you actually pay for it through the the revenue you bring in? So yeah, I want to know more about the partnerships and business model.
Yeah, sure thing. So like I mentioned, we are owned by Pablo Group. So Pablo Group is a redevelopment group here in Eau Claire. Some people may be familiar with the Pablo Center. That's not part of Pablo Group, but it is something that Pablo Group purchased the naming rights for, and kind of like American Family Field. American Family Insurance does not run American Family Field, but they paid a bunch of money to put their name on the place where the Brewers play baseball. So just like that is how Pablo Center in Eau Claire works. Pablo Group owns several hotels, the Lismore, the Oxbow. We've got a new one going up, which is a Spring Hill Suites by Marriott in the new Sonateg development, a couple of restaurants, a couple of bars, and then some real estate holdings as well. So we're very lucky to be supported by Pablo Group in this. It keeps our staffing costs lower than it would for us to be handling all of the different inner workings of HR and finance and marketing. And we get to leverage a lot of those resources through our parent company, Pablo Group. So that also helps us keep our operating costs low. I will say, co-working is not, unless you are planning on scaling, is not a cash flow crazy business or industry to be working in. If you're looking to open several co-working spaces and kind of franchise your brand out, that's where some co-working space operators see a lot of luck in actually making a lucrative go at co-working. But a space like CoLab, which is intended to be a resource in our community, is not a cash flow like crazy positive business. And so support from Pablo Group is paramount in how we operate. We also do seek sponsorship for certain things. So, for example, we have member events every month where we'll take our membership over to Reboot Social, the barcade down the street, or we'll have a happy hour, or we'll cook pancakes for breakfast, or we'll order pizza for lunch, or do a paint and sip. And so those sorts of things we have a sponsor for. Northwestern Bank gives us a dollar amount every year, and we get to plan those member events. And that's just mainly to foster that connection and that collaboration that we're hoping to see our members doing. There is also a model where co-working spaces are nonprofits. We are a for-profit, but basically only by how we file our taxes. If we had the opportunity to be a nonprofit, it could work more in our favor financially. But there are also some things with being a nonprofit that you have to consider, frankly, like answering to a board that we don't have to do. So we're able to be a little bit more nimble and adaptive in how we operate.
Thank you.
Adam, so can you explain kind of the difference between you as like CoLab as compared to services that like the Small Business Development Center offers? Like, what is the difference? Just the differences between the services you provide and the SBDC.
Yeah, that's a great question. So SBDCs, Small Business Development Centers, typically exist in every community with a UW city around the state here. And that's no different in Eau Claire, where our SBDC is based out of the university. At CoLab, we never claim to be the experts on anything, but we typically know who is the expert, or we can find out who is the expert in a particular area. And so at the point at which some people come into us, the SBDC isn't the place that we'll send them. We'll send them instead to go do some interviews with industry professionals and kind of refine their business idea a little bit more before we send them over to the SBDC, which primarily handles business plans, financial projections, and marketing support. And so we kind of know how to navigate the different resources that exist. And so rather than saying, we'll help you with your business plan, we'll help you with your financial projections, we say, okay, it seems like you're at a good point where your business plan is about ready to be reviewed by somebody professional, and you're ready to do your financial projections before you head to a bank to get some financing. Then we'll connect them with the SBDC. So rather than trying to just send everybody over to the SBDC and hope for the best, we're trying to navigate in the way that's the least time consuming for the entrepreneur who typically doesn't have the time to spare, and also not exhausting the resources that do exist. The SBDC is government funded, is a free service for people. And so they do have limited capacity in how they can operate. Currently, our SBDC is about 3 weeks behind from what I've heard in reviewing business plans and financial projections because there's so much startup activity happening right now. And so instead of further overwhelming them with things that aren't helpful at the point that the entrepreneur is at, we're trying to help lessen their workload by kind of prepping the entrepreneur a little bit in advance through other meetings and other connections before we send them to that next stage.
Right, so we have a question. Do your staff offer help with internet issues, challenges, or have a contractor help with those services? Is one of your amenities offering access to platforms such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, great question. So Lawrence and I are able to troubleshoot as much as we are able to. We're definitely not tech support people or very super techie people, but we obviously have the contact information for our internet service providers, our other vendors and things. And so when issues do exist, we manage those rather than expecting our members to kind of take them on themselves. As far as platforms, members don't necessarily get access to their own personal Zoom accounts, but our 2 conference rooms that we have are Zoom equipped. And so we can schedule Zoom meetings on the Zoom premium accounts that the rooms hold, and people are able to use those just as their own meetings. So we're able to schedule it on the backside, give them a link, give them host access, and then they're able to use our accounts for those sorts of things. Our rooms only integrate with Zoom at the moment. Teams, we haven't been able to get to work with them, but that's kind of the platform access that we give to our members.
We have another question. Can you give us a sense for the range of ventures represented by your membership? What kinds of businesses are using the space? Also, have you seen much cross-business synergy?
Yeah. Since we started doing our Northwestern Bank member events, we have seen a lot more synergy between our members and collaborations happening. Right now, we have a really exciting startup called Village working out of CoLab, which is an aggregator for after-school activities for children. And so they are not only engaging with existing businesses that offer that programming, like the Children's Museum, Beaver Creek Nature Reserve, the YMCA, they're also engaging with startups and entrepreneurs who have skills that they're willing to offer in a one-off class. And so almost every member in CoLab has been engaged with about offering a class with Village in which the entrepreneur would get paid for offering the course, and Village would have something to put on their platform to offer to their potential client base. So that's been one example of a recent kind of synergy we've been seeing build here at CoLab. We also have Green Fleet, which is a fleet of Teslas that are offering shuttle service to and from the Twin Cities Airport. We've got SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Managers. We have CC We Adapt, which is a peer support network and business. We have the Veterans Chamber of Commerce, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Smart Care Software is a home healthcare based software that has grown over the past 5 years here in Eau Claire. No Boundaries Tiny Homes, which builds tiny homes. Drone Tours, which is a drone photography business. Lawn Seed, which is a flowering lawn seed kit that you can buy for your lawn to attract pollinators and give yourself a low mow lawn. Edwin Marie Web Design, Business Networking International, Idea Fund out of La Crosse, which is a venture capital firm. Menominee Market and Co-op. Vibrant Virtual, which is a new HR style software to encourage more employee engagement and interaction. And Toyventive, which is a toy company here. So quite a mix of both the startups that are just kind of getting started, as well as some places like Shelter Architecture, which may be able to provide services to our members when they grow a little bit too large for CoLab.
Do we have any more questions?
I have another one if no one. So for the entrepreneurs, and thank you so much for that, like great that having that list. And I also want to point out somebody wrote something very nice in the chat as well, that the pictures of the space look amazing. So just wanted to shout out, you're getting good feedback. So for the entrepreneurs that operate out of CoLab, at what stage of business development would you say most of them are, or is it really kind of across the spectrum? And I guess another way to ask this is, do you, when you all opened CoLab, when you thought about your customer base, did you target a specific type of business or a specific stage of business development in order to, like, you know, get people, your clients, or, you know, get people in using CoLab?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as far as stage of business development, we're really kind of all across the board. And we try to offer different levels and different amenities for those different stages of business development. And so we do have some members that are like, I have this side hustle that I'm just kind of thinking I'm going to take full time, but I'm not quite there yet. So I'm going to get going with CoLab. I'm going to sit down and talk with Adam and go through kind of my plan for scaling this business and getting it operational and getting to a point where I can take it to a full-time gig. We also have people that this is their full-time job, this is their actual career, and they're making a go at full-on entrepreneurship. And for those folks, we have things like our WISES Venture Home program, which is looking for scalable businesses. And we put them through a 6-month accelerator course, which allows them to connect with local and statewide resources, get in front of investors, and also refine their business ideas to a place that allows them or positions them well for growth. And so we try to kind of offer all of those different connections and things specifically for startups and entrepreneurs. But on the flip side of that, the clients that can typically pay the most and the clients that we find ourselves courting as sustainers of the space in order to keep our barrier to entry low for our startups and entrepreneurs are those corporations with larger pocketbooks and larger spends. So for example, Verizon. Verizon has a remote team in the area that rents out our conference rooms about once a week, and they're able to pay that higher rental rate rather than establishing a membership presence here in the space. And so that helps us sustain our operations, keeping our membership costs at a lower level for our entrepreneurs, but we are courting some of those higher dollar clients just to be able to sustain the space in the resource realm that we're trying to provide here as well.
Thank you.
So I have a question. With your, providing students with free access, have you seen that a lot of these students are actually staying? Like, what do you see kind of happening with that program and providing free services to students?
Yeah, so it's a little bit too early to see if it's going to help in retention of the students. The program started in fall 2021, but it really didn't take off until fall 2022, both because we were in our new space and things were finally kind of normal with COVID, with regards to COVID. And so in 2021, the school was still masking, there were still a lot of precautions in place. And so we weren't really pushing a ton of like, get off campus and be around people activity. And so in 2022, it allowed us to be in a better place to kind of encourage those students to use our space. We hosted the entrepreneur program class here at CoLab, gave them a tour of the space, talked about CoLab, and kind of had a conversation with those students to get them excited about using the space. But outside of the entrepreneur program class, we also have groups like the Multicultural Business Student Alliance, which has their regular meetings here now. And we do have a lot of students that are working for local companies or local organizations that are doing that work here. And we have seen some students actually interacting with some of our members, specifically those that are in kind of the technology and coding sectors, where if they've got an issue with a code or something, they'll just see if anybody in the space happens to know what they're doing in regards to coding. And so they're establishing those connections in really informal ways, which is really nice for them seeing that these positions, these jobs do exist in the Chippewa Valley. I don't have to go outside of Eau Claire. I don't have to go outside of Wisconsin to find them. I can find them right here.
We do have a question from Kelsey. Do your resources stretch all over Wisconsin? We are in Southeast Wisconsin, Lake Geneva area.
Yeah, so we're most connected with the Chippewa Valley entrepreneurial ecosystem. So kind of thinking Eau Claire, Menominee, Chippewa Falls, Altoona, that area, and kind of surrounding it. We do have connections with statewide organizations like WISIS, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, Wisconsin Tech Council, that help us access some of those more niche resources. So say one of our members is really interested in opening a factory in Lake Geneva, we'd reach out to a statewide partner and see who we could put them in touch with to get a more local connection. But we're more connected into the Chippewa Valley than we are into southeastern Wisconsin, for example.
So can you tell us a little bit about Million Cups? That came up in the last session too, just to get an idea of what that is and how that program works, and especially as a co-organizer.
Yeah. So 1 Million Cups is a national organization supported by the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City, Missouri. And typically at 1 Million Cups, you are going to hear from an entrepreneur or a startup business that's 5 years or less in operation. In Eau Claire, we take businesses that are in idea phase. We take minimum viable product. We take, I've just opened a storefront. We take, I've been in business for a year and I just want to talk about it. Rather than a pitch, 1 Million Cups offers you an opportunity to tell the story of yourself as the entrepreneur and your business journey, and then get supportive feedback from our audience. we host 1MC in Eau Claire up at Chippewa Valley Technical College, and it's actually the first hour of the entrepreneurial mindset course, where we have students, faculty, staff, local resource providers, local business owners or experts in areas in attendance. And so it creates a safe environment for you to share either things that are not going so well for you, barriers that you might be having to accessing either information or resources in the area, asking questions about potential customer bases or getting ideas for ways to diversify your business. And so it creates this safe environment for you to be able to talk about some of the things that maybe aren't going so well for you and get supportive feedback on that. So 1 Million Cups, I know that Madison just restarted their 1 Million Cups chapter, but they do exist in communities across the United States. So if you head to 1millioncups.org, you're able to see if there are meetups around you. And if there aren't meetups around you, you would have the ability to potentially become kind of a co-organizer in your community. You receive a license from the national organization. They provide you with support in terms of branding, platform access, organization, and then you are free to run your local meetup how you want to. And so for us in Eau Claire, we run it every Wednesday morning, and we have one speaker that gets 10 to 20 minutes, and then we do about 40 minutes of Q&A. Other organizations do a once a month meetup where they have two entrepreneurs. It's more of a pitch style where they get 6 minutes and then they get 20 minutes of Q&A, and then there's a quick changeover to another presenter. We in Eau Claire have found that the feedback portion is more beneficial than the presentation portion for the entrepreneur specifically. And so we like to allot a little bit more time to that than some other chapters are following kind of that national formula for it.
All right, Megan has a question. Can you tell us a little more about F-Up Nights? Where do you have them? How long do they last? How many speakers at one event? Feedback, Q&A, setup, etc. Love the concept behind embracing the failures of those who take the leap.
Yeah, I'll drop the link into the national or the global organization. So F-Up Nights is a global organization based out of Mexico City, and it is meant to destigmatize and normalize failure in professional life. And so it's non-industry specific. We obviously at CoLab have connections with startups and entrepreneurs, and we know that there's a lot of failure in startups and entrepreneurship that sometimes turns around and actually becomes a success in hindsight. So we held our first one in March. We held it at the Lakely, which is a local bar restaurant here in Eau Claire that has a stage and a microphone for us to use. And I curate the lineup for each one, where I go out, I find speakers, and I kind of adjust the stories as fits into the F-Up Nights formula. They have a kind of a set storytelling format that they like you to use, and zeroing in really on the failure. And so you get 7 minutes and 10 slides with just pictures to tell your story. In our first one, I told a story about how I forgot some kids behind in Costa Rica when I was interning on a study abroad trip. Someone else shared a story about a promotion that he was offered, and then the promotion was rescinded because he sent a whiny email back. So various stories of professional failure that just kind of show that it's universal and it happens to everyone. After that 7-minute presentation, there's Q&A with the audience. And so the audience has the opportunity to ask things about what happened after the failure. What are you doing now? In hindsight, what's something you could have done differently? Do you regret making that mistake? Things like that, that it then takes the conversation in a way that the audience that's present would like to take it. And so it was a really cool night on March 30th, the first one that we held. We had 3 speakers and 3 stories, and then the audience got involved with the Q&A. So our next one will be in June. We're planning on doing it at the same place at the Lakely, and we'll be kind of adjusting it from there. But the nice thing about that, much like 1 Million Cups, we receive support from the global organization in terms of branding, platform access, marketing support, those sorts of things. But then we're free to organize the local meetup however we would like. And you can license it out to your community. They only do 1 license per community, but anyone that wants to get involved can purchase the license and organize their own event in their community.
All right, do we have any more questions? All right, Mia has a question.
No,
Oh,
sorry, I didn't have a question. I just thought this is really exciting. You know, I love those activities that you just described to get people interactive with other entrepreneurs to trade stories. And just your space is really vital and welcoming and creative. I wish you'd come up north and organize one here for us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and like I said, happy to talk. The thing about co-working that I found is that the industry is very supportive of one another and don't necessarily find other co-working spaces to be in competition. Obviously, unless they're like locally centered, but we have great connections with a couple co-working spaces over in the Twin Cities, down in Madison, down in Milwaukee, down in Chicago, out in New York. And we're able to reach out to those either owners or operators at any point with questions that we have or issues that we're encountering. It's also been just really nice, especially for our small team, to be able to ask questions to other people and for them to say, oh, that's an issue here too. And so it just makes us feel like we're not alone, that we're not crazy for certain things being kind of universal issues. And it's not like we're just operating in our own little bubble. And then I saw Mia's question here of how do we track impact? So tracking impact is a little bit more difficult for us because we don't necessarily have like a robust reporting software or like a lead tracking software that we use. We primarily rely on both our network of resource providers that we're sending people to, as well as just the individual entrepreneurs coming back in to report findings or follow up with us if they're experiencing any issues. Just last week, we had somebody that popped in. She was like, hey, I was just downtown and I just wanted to stop in and say thank you for the connection. We had a meeting. We're trying to figure out the best way that we can work together on this particular project, but thank you again for making that introduction. And so hearing back on things is something that we appreciate, but it doesn't always happen. But one thing that does happen is when we do connect someone with another person, and then they come back to us and say, hey, they haven't gotten back to me yet. We do push that connection and try to follow up so that we are staying accountable to the people that are coming in for support and making sure that we're sending them to trustworthy and reliable people to make sure that they can actually help grow their businesses and help them with whatever entrepreneurial issues they're experiencing.
all right, anyone else?
I was going to do a quick shout out to the cool worksheet that we put on the website for today. When in talking with Adam and Addison in planning this workshop today, or this speaker series, this webinar, oh my goodness. I think Adam mentioned something about how one of the things he ends up doing is helping people navigate business resources. So that's why we called it, titled that today. But then we also have a worksheet that ask people to, think through, what stage of business development are you at? What are the different resources you need? And then it helps you think through how are you going to navigate finding that business resource. And so this is something you can print off or you can fill it out online. It's a fillable PDF. And you can think about, we put some examples on there like insurance, baking, marketing, financing, business planning. And then we also have, what are some of these business development resources in Wisconsin? And we put a few of them on there, like the Small Business Development Center, locating your local Small Business Development Center, WIBIC, Food Finance Institute, your CAP agency, if there's a Main Street organization. And then we leave lots of lines blank for you to fill out, what are the other additional, if you have an awesome business incubator or co-working space like CoLab in your neighborhood, put them on there. So again, that is on the website and the same place where you will get the evaluation and everything for today. So just wanted to have a nice shout out and also thank, Adam for like inspiring that kind of that worksheet, because it came straight from that conversation of just like, oh yeah, of course, we can just make a worksheet for people. So thank you, Adam.
Of course.
All right. Are there any other questions, comments?
I will say, if you are in the Chippewa Valley or the 10-county region in western Wisconsin that the Red Letter Grant supports, the Red Letter Grant application period is currently open for women-owned businesses in western Wisconsin. So you can find more on redlettergrant.org if you happen to be in one of those 10 counties in western Wisconsin. And basically the qualifiers are you have to be in the 10-county region and your business is 51% or more women-owned. So if you are interested in that, redlettergrant.org. In addition, we just established an awesome relationship with the Wisconsin Veterans Chamber. So if you are a veteran-owned or veteran-friendly business, we have open office hours in Eau Claire with the Veterans Chamber every first and third Wednesday of the month with the regional director. And so he comes up here and he's happy to help with entrepreneurship support, legal support. He's working currently on passing the bar in Wisconsin after passing it in Georgia. And he also has experience with like veterans benefits and things like that. So if anybody is experiencing issues with those things, you are welcome to connect with Josh, but anybody in kind of that northwestern region from La Crosse through Eau Claire up to Bayfield and over to the west is his area.
All right. If there isn't any more questions, I just want to remind everyone to take the short evaluation survey that you will find on our website, as well as you probably will see an email as well as a friendly reminder. And I just want to let everyone know that there's 2 more webinars. The next one is next week, same time, Monday as well, and it will be covering local foods, safe food, starting the farm or home business, food business in Wisconsin. Yeah, and I just want to again thank you, Adam, and CoLab for willing to come on and tell us a little bit about who you are, you know, your how you work and how you kind of fit in with supporting businesses. And that is it. Thank you.